Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. I hope you guys all had a good Halloween if you celebrated, and now it is November, which is crazy. Like, where is this year gone? In the States here, it'll be Thanksgiving in a few weeks, and then Christmas is right around the corner. Like, I don't know where this year is gone, honestly. But as I said, I hope you had a good Halloween if you celebrated. And today what we're going to do is we're going to do kind of like a part 2 of a kind of book show and tell again. My last, I think it was my second video or something like that. But my last book show and tell, you guys really seem to like it. It's still getting quite a few views to this day, and it was like a month ago, and it's got almost 150 views, which is the most viewed video on my channel by a good margin. And so I thought that I would do another one of these. So like last time, and again, if you haven't checked out that video already, I'll leave a link to it up here somewhere so you can watch it. And like last time, I'm going to be going through 3 books. I've got 3 books to my right here, and I'm just gonna kind of go through them and talk about them a bit. They're all maybe a little bit more diverse than last time. They're on vastly different topics, so this should be pretty interesting. And as far as the books, 2 of them are paperback, 1 of them is hardcover. And these are mostly recent acquisitions. I have read all of them, but and they're all very good books. So without further ado, I'm going to get started. So this is a hefty one. So we've got our first book here, and this one I got about a month ago. Not even. When did I go to Western Mass? A few weeks ago. But if you remember, if you've seen that Western Mass video, you'll know that I went to a bookstore in one of the towns that I stopped in, and this was one thing that I got. And if you haven't checked out that video, I would highly encourage that as well. That was my favorite one to make, so yeah, by quite a good margin. That was a really fun trip. So this book I saw in the bookstore, and I immediately just got drawn to it. I'm a really big sucker for field guides, and that's exactly what this is. This is the Reader's Digest North American Wildlife Illustrated Guide to 2,000 Plants and Animals. So this book says North America, but I think my definition of North America and the Reader's Digest definition of North America are 2 totally different North Americas. When I think of North America, I think of Canada, the US, Mexico, all of Central America, and all of the Caribbean islands. But this book kind of is restricted to Canada, the US, and the northern half of Mexico. So it's a little bit maybe limited in terms of the places that we go within North America, but there are over 2,000 species in here. And my love of field guides dates back quite a long time to elementary school. When I was in 3rd grade, my teacher had quite a nice collection of field guides in her classroom, and that's what got me kind of exposed to them. And I would always read them. I'd always be the first person to take them out of the stack and put them at my desk. And Also, at the library, even before third grade, I was big on checking out these kinds of books. I remember there was one book that I consistently went back for every single time to the library, and I just wanted to read it all the time. So, but this book has this very striking image on the front of a coyote, which, I've come across my fair share of coyotes here. But, these two piercing eyes just staring at you right at the front cover really gets your attention. And then down here you have some other stuff. Let me see if I can get closer. That is a great horned owl, a humpback whale, a forest, and a moose. And I would love to see a moose in person someday. It is yet to happen, but it will happen at some point. I'm manifesting it. And then here's the back, and as you can see, the pictures kind of carry over onto the back. You've got some type of flower here. I'm not a flower expert. A mountain lion, a monarch butterfly, and some kind of fish. I'm not an aquatics expert either. So one thing I like about this is, one thing I like about paperbacks in general, I'm more of a hardcover person, as I've said before, but you can really flip through the pages here. Ooh, gives you kind of a whiff of an old bookstore while you're doing it. But as you can see, this book is color-coded here by section, and each section has a different type of animal or plant in it. So, for example, the start of this thing is called Wildlife Communities. And this is a picture of a northern pine forest. And over here we have a picture of the cypress swamp down in the southeast United States. And there are a lot of different environments that this book covers, and it tells you on the side what animals you can find in these places and on what page, and also what plant life you can find here and on what page as well, which I think is really cool. That's super helpful. But you've got your section on environments. You've got your section. Sorry, this is where I got the book. I'm using that as a bookmark. But you've got all your different animals here. This is the mammals section. And you've got this looks like the rodents section. And you can see here as well. You might be able to see that. But that's where you can find these animals within North America. So for example, if you wanted to find the meadow vole, you can find that it exists in most parts of Canada as well as much of the US. And so that's the mammals. And we also have birds. We have reptiles. So these are all snakes. Amphibians. So these are the toads. You have mollusks. So these are all different snails and conches and shells and things like that. You have your insects right here. Hawk moths, royal moths, giant silk moths. You have your trees. So, like, I flipped to the giant sequoia and redwoods section. I would love to see those in person. I think I've mentioned that before. A section on shrubs, which that is a very specific section. Wildflowers. Dang, this wildflower section is big. Ferns. Seaweeds. And mushrooms. So I've looked through all of this book. I have not gotten through all of it because it is pretty hefty. It's, if you exclude the index, it would be 559 pages. That's quite a bit to get through. But this is a very comprehensive book. And in terms of field guides, it's a pretty solid one. I mean, it's sold 2.7 million copies, so it's wildly popular. And this was published in 2012, so there might be some stuff that's a bit outdated in this. But I think it gives a good guide to what you can find in North America. Okay. I'll set that one to the side. And the next one is this book here, which has this really awesome cover design. This book is by Meredith F. Small. It's called Inventing the World. And I love how they've replaced the O in world with a compass. That's a nice choice. This is called Venice and the Transformation of Western Civilization. This is a nonfiction book, and you can see here in the cover design, it's got Venice over here, along with all these guys who are on boats, probably a few gondola drivers as well, and then that continues over on the back as well. So obviously the cover of this book was wildly striking, which for me, again, that's the thing that kind of draws me in. And when I read the side of it, I thought it sounded really interesting. Also, I'm a little bit biased on this book. As I've mentioned before, my family on my father's side is from Italy. My great-grandparents were from Sicily, and a few generations before that, they were in Venice. So I do have some family history in this city, which is kind of cool to say. But Venice is basically, this book's exploring the idea of, you know, Venice is not a super big city. It's about 180,000 people. And at its peak, really. And that's about, it's not a super large city. The city of Worcester in my home state is the second largest city in my state. And that has about 180,000, 190,000. So It's, like I said, it's not a big city, but some big ideas have come through Venice, and that's why it's called Inventing the World, because a lot of the ideas that we use in modern civilization came from this city. Venice is a very striking city due to being on the water, and a lot of ideas and ideologies and inventions and scientific advances have originated in this city. And this book basically traces that back and explores what those were and how that relates to modern civilization. It's a fascinating book. A lot of this stuff I didn't know prior to picking this up. But I'll look at the inside of the cover here. Kind of talks a little bit about, it says, an epic cultural journey that reveals how Venetian ingenuity and inventions shaped modernity. So, and then it talks a little bit about kind of the book here and how it has invented or led to the development of things in writing and grammar, different types of laws, the concept of quarantine during a disease outbreak, which that is actually a very interesting story in and of itself if you're familiar with when the bubonic plague broke out in Venice. But it's such an interesting city, and Venice a lot of times is referred to as kind of this historical relic of the past, but it continues to kind of be this center for ideas and just general philosophy that kind of permeates through the city even today. So this book it was published in 2020, so this is a pretty recent book, and it has kind of a notes section at the end and a bibliography. Pretty extensive bibliography and notes section. It has this timeline of significant inventions and developments that took place in Venice. So this stretches back all the way from 675 AD and goes to second. 2013. So, yeah, that's a pretty long history of being an innovator, which is pretty sweet. But this book in total, if you would like to read it, is that is the acknowledgments. 1 second. $243 pages. So it's not super long. The print is kind of small, so that's something to keep in mind. But I just think this is really cool. You've got, how many boats can we count on the front cover? I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you've got a bunch back here that I'm not even going to try and count. But yeah, like I said, this is a fascinating book if you're interested in this type of stuff. As I said before, I'm primarily a nonfiction kind of person. I like things that are kind of real and tangible. So this kind of stuff really appeals to me. Okay. And then the last book that I'm going to talk about is actually one that I was gifted by a friend, and I'm very glad that he gifted it to me. this is called How Soccer Explains the World by Franklin Foer. And this is a relatively old book. This was published in 2004, so almost 20 years ago. And this book really, well, it's also around 248 pages. My finger is covering that right now, but yeah, 248. And soccer is something, it's a sport that I love. It's my favorite sport by quite a wide margin. And I think you guys probably can tell that with this Barcelona flag in the background that I always have on my videos. But I used to work in the global soccer industry. I started when I was 18 and continued for quite some time. So it's a topic that I'm very well versed in my opinion. But this book was really like thought-provoking, and something that I love about soccer is that it, in theory, is so simple. And I'm saying soccer because I'm American, and I know 80% of you guys are not from here, so it's football to the rest of you guys, but I'm going to say soccer in this video. On the surface, soccer is so simple. It's 11 guys on each side of the field trying to kick a ball into a net, which is about as simple as you can get. But I compare soccer to kind of like an iceberg. On the surface, it's very, very easy to understand. However, if you look a little bit deeper, about 90 to 95% of what goes on in soccer is not simple. There are so many underlying stories and politics and ideas and ideologies and philosophies that really explain the different parts of the world that soccer is played in, and really globalization as a whole. It's so interesting. Like I said, I learned something new about the sport every day, and I've, like I said, worked in soccer, and I did it for a number of years. So this book has about 10 different chapters, and it talks about, soccer on the surface, and then goes into depth about things such as religion, philosophy. It talks about certain power structures within countries and how soccer kind of helps explain why those things are present. If you're not a big soccer fan, it might be difficult to understand at times, because he does talk a lot about specific intricacies of the sport within specific countries. The structure is a lot like in my last book video. I talked about a book called Ottoman Odyssey, where kind of the author goes to explore a different country in each chapter. And this book is exactly like that. Each chapter goes to a different country in the world. 7 of these 10 chapters are based in Europe, which makes sense because that's kind of the epicenter of the game. So he talks about Scotland, England, Spain, Italy, Austria, Hungary, and Ukraine, and how soccer kind of helps explore issues within those countries. And even he kind of uses those countries as kind of a backdrop to kind of explain more global events as well, and global tendencies, which I think is really clever. And then the 3 countries that he talks about outside of Europe are the United States, Brazil. I mean, it's a soccer book. how could you not talk about Brazil? And the Islamic Republic of Iran. So some of the religions, if you guys are interested about that they touch on are, talks about Judaism, talks about Islam, even talks about Christianity, kind of explores that in the beginning. He uses the rivalry in Scotland. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Celtic and Rangers. They're the two big teams in Scotland, and they have a very fierce rivalry with each other. One side is vehemently Protestant, and the other side is vehemently Catholic. The Catholic side being Celtic, and the Protestant side being Rangers. And kind of explains sectarian violence and sectarian beliefs within these communities, which I think is really cool. And then he also talks about, like I said, different power structures within countries, why things are the way they are, and how that's reflected in the different supporters groups of clubs. Soccer is just such an interesting sport. It's way more than just a sport for a good amount of the people, and growing up in America, you don't really get that that kind of understanding of that. It's something you kind of have to experience. And if you ever go to Europe, it's something that you will experience quite heavily. It's just ingrained in culture, and it's such a part of people's lives. It's like a cornerstone of people's lives, which is fascinating. And I love this cover too. You've got a soccer field in the background, and then you've got these almost what look like monks sitting watching the game. And this kind of gives you an idea of kind of what you're going to encounter in the book. You have the simplicity of soccer, and then you also have this cultural background that he goes into depth on. But I would recommend, if you're going to read this book, don't do it before bed, because this does require some thinking and maybe some Googling. And if you're one that shies away from heavy topics, this also might not be the book for you. But if you can get past those two things, if those two things aren't issues to you, then this is a very worthwhile read. Okay. So I think that's it for the most part. I hope you guys like this one as well. This is a bit longer than my first book review and book talk. Almost not a review. But once again, I'd like to thank everybody for all the support so far. The channel's getting close to like 400 views across all videos, which is crazy. And we're slowly starting to build kind of a community. We're close to 20 subscribers, so thank you so much for that. That means a lot. But yeah, I've gone on some recent journeys recently, and I've taken some video, and so I'll be kind of releasing those over the course of the next week or so, and I'll be back with more kind of low-key videos like this as well. So until then, I hope you guys are doing well, and I hope you guys are taking care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next video. See you later.